Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-minute Histories videos. And today we're going to talk about the Congress Hotel and the Marble Bar. Those are behind me. If you're tuning in live time, you might remember that last week we did a holiday video on train gardens, and that sort of felt like our last video of the year, but there's still a few days left, and we thought we would try to squeeze one more in. And I was thinking, well, what's everybody going to be doing on New Year's Eve this year? And the answer is probably you're going to be exactly where you are now. But that got me thinking, well, what might have we all been doing in years past? And that led me to the Marble Bar. If it was 1982, some of us might have been in line to see the punk band, the Slickee Boys, a nationally known band that was making the national circuit back then. Or a little bit before that, if it was the 1950s, some of us might have been in line to try to get a glimpse of Bob Hope as he was eating dinner here after performing around the corner at the Academy Hotel. But let's start at the start. The Congress Hotel was built in 1903 by a gentleman named James Kiernan. He was quite the showman and an owner of a number of theaters and hotels. He was born in the 1830s in Baltimore. He got kind of a lackluster start in dry goods, and then when the Civil War came around, he joined the Confederacy. He went and fought and promptly got captured and spent most of the war in a military prison. He got out of, once the war was over, he came back to Baltimore and started his enterprising theater business. Incidentally, one of his boyhood friends was John Wilkes Booth, which might explain both the Confederacy and the love of theater. So Kiernan, by the 1870s and 80s, had started a number of theaters, mostly vaudeville in Baltimore, some of which kind of crossed the line and the authorities cracked down on his shows. But by the late 1890s, he was scheming what he called the $1 million triple enterprise. And if that isn't a showman's term, I don't know what is. And the $1 million triple enterprise was the hotel behind me, the Hotel Kiernan, and two theaters right around the corner. The Academy Theater, which we now know today is the Mayfair Theater. The front house still stands on Howard Street, and the Maryland Theater right next door to each other. And he built these to really be a center of both high society and national talent. And if you were lucky enough to come and stay here, you were treated like royalty. You could see a show across the street and then get to your hotel in an underground tunnel, so you didn't have to mix with the hoi polloi above. And we're here on Franklin Street, right near the corner of Franklin and Howard. And your room would have a brass bed, ornate wood carvings, potted palms in the hallways, what he called the finest plumbing in the city, so really treated like royalty. On the first floor there was a barber shop, a high-end barber shop, and an art gallery. Down below there were Turkish baths, and below one of the theaters there was a swimming pool for your use. And then maybe the creme de la creme was the Ratskeller. That's a German term, basically a German beer garden in a basement, but really super cool. And Kiernan built an enormous Ratskeller with a 72-foot-long bar made of Italian marble. And later the Ratskeller changes its name to the Marble Bar. But back then, in addition to Bob Hope, you could have seen the Marx Brothers and all sorts of other performers. And in fact, at the Marble Bar, you could have seen Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire dance. They came there frequently and entertained. And one of the other neat things that you probably would not have been invited to, it was a private wedding, but two actors got married, an actor and an actress, who had been part of a theater troupe, the University Players, that had been playing, I believe, at the Academy Theater. They were out of New England, but they had a home base here. And on Christmas Day, they got married, and that was, those two were Margaret Sullivan and Henry Fonda. So that happened here on Christmas Day. So the theater, the two theaters and the hotel were quite the scene, but they didn't last forever in that sort of high, rarefied society. And in fact, Kiernan died in 1912 in his set of suites, his set of rooms here at the hotel. Incidentally, when he died, he was quite wealthy. He owned theaters theaters not only in Baltimore, but I think he owned 3 in Washington, D.C. and 4 in Buffalo. And he gave a good chunk of his estate to a hospital in West Baltimore for disabled children that was called Kiernan. It changed its name to Kiernan Hospital, and now I believe it's part of the University of Maryland system. If you know where Dickeyville is, it's over by Dickeyville. So by the 1930s, a family named the Fieri family had purchased the hotel. It's on Franklin Street, which is Route 40, and they were trying to cater to motorists, the new motorist visitors. They made all sorts of changes, including putting a big sign at the top so people driving cars could see. And that lasted until the 1970s. But eventually, like almost all other fancy luxury hotels in downtowns, in Baltimore and elsewhere, it couldn't hang on. And by the 1970s, it had changed hands into a new family, I believe the Palumbo family, and the rooms were single occupancy for $5 a night. And let me read to you what one Baltimore Sun reporter wrote about staying in the rooms, I believe in 1978. He writes, "The bed felt like a collapsed accordion and looked like a bombed-out rowboat 10 seconds before she goes under. Laying down on the bed, you could almost feel the entire hotel sagging." So the rooms upstairs, not so good. But in that era, let me get their names right, Roger and Leslie Anderson were running the Marble Bar. The hotel had changed its name from the Hotel Kiernan to the Congress Hotel when motor visitors were the thing, and the bar had changed from the Rathskeller to the Marble Bar, and it was quite the scene nationally for up-and-coming punk rock bands and new wave bands, bands like the Psychedelic Furs, Iggy Pop, REM, the Talking Heads, all young bands making their starts on the national circuit. They all made a point to come here. And some of you may have seen them here. The Marble Bar was also sort of the launching pad for a number of local groups. One was Edie and the Eggs. Some of you may have seen that band, an all-women band. When they broke up, one of their members went on to become part of the Go-Go's, maybe a more famous name nationally. But that also couldn't last. By 1985, the Marble Bar had closed, and by 1986, the hotel had closed. It sat vacant for about 20 years, but a number of years ago, a redevelopment firm, Struver Brothers, Eccles and Rouse, luckily purchased it and redeveloped it fantastically into apartments, and that's what it is today. Unfortunately, they did not get around, they couldn't get around to doing the Marble Bar, and it still is sitting vacant, but we're not going to end on a down note, we're going to end on an up note, because in the months just before the pandemic hit, the current owners, I believe Zalco Company, had begun making plans to reopen the Marble Bar. I think the bar is no longer there. I believe it was auctioned off. I could be wrong. Somebody let me know. But regardless, they were making plans to reopen the bar as a community and an event space. So even though this New Year's Eve we are probably all going to be in our living rooms without a whole lot of other people or entertainment, maybe we can say our final 2020 wish that in 2021 some of us may be standing in line again outside the Marble Bar waiting to get in and join the hoopla inside. All right, have a happy new year, and we will see you in 2021. Thanks so much.